What is going on, U.S. history people? We're back with video number 2, Geographic Impacts on Settlement. Super important. Geography is often overlooked in social studies classes. It's very important to understand how the geography of colonial America impacted the development of the colonies and then the states after the American Revolution. So, Mr. Lawrence, introduce us to New England, please.
All right, so when studying the American colonies, it's important to understand the development of different regions and their geographic impacts on the cultures as well as the economy. So let's start off with a phrase or a region that some of you may be aware of already. It was known as New England. So, Mr. Norris, do you want to take a guess who settled in New England?
I'm going to go with the English here. I'm going to use some context clues and go with the English.
That's a good guess, and you're correct. So what areas, or what could we say, maybe modern day states or even colonies at that time made up New England? Well, the answer is Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and New Hampshire. So when we understand this region, if you've ever been to New England or if you live in New England, you're going to understand that the climate is much cooler than the southern part of the United States. You definitely have those 4 seasons, but when it gets to the fall, winter, definitely very cold. One thing also about the New England colonies, if you look at a map of New England, you're going to notice that irregular coastline, and as a result, it's going to be great for ports. You're going to have a lot of ease of access of ships getting in and out. Unfortunately, for the people of New England, their soil wasn't as fertile as areas that we're going to see in the middle and southern colonies. There were areas you could grow food, but not necessarily on the same level as other regions of the colonies.
So we mentioned that it was the English that settled New England in 2 important groups that did. This is a painting of the Mayflower. So you have the Pilgrims that are in New England. And down here, this is John Winthrop. He was the leader of the Puritans. So religion is going to play a very important role in settling New England.
Huge and very important to understand that. Religion, New England, one of the main reasons why people come to this region, where we'll see it'll be a little different in some of the other regions of the Americas. Finally, we talk about the economy. It was in a mixed economy of commerce and agriculture, small-scale farms, so you did have enough for subsistence farming. People will be able to grow crops, but you also see the development of a lot of trade as this region starts to grow, specifically trade and fishing, using that irregular coastline in those ports.
So jumping over to demographics, and when I say demographics, Mr. Lawrence, what do I mean by that? What are we talking about?
I think we're talking about like the groups of people who lived there and what they were like.
Absolutely. So the makeup of people, what were the people like that lived there? So in New England, we have a higher life expectancy. You mentioned earlier that there was a cooler temperature. That is more likely to kill bacteria that could make you sick. So we see the highest life expectancy there. You're more likely to see extended families, including grandparents, as this little child is playing with her grandparent.
It's an iPhone.
It looks like an iPhone that he's playing with. Yeah, it's crazy. It was around back then. Labor systems, when we're talking about labor systems, we're talking about people and how they are working. We'll talk about this more in the next video, but just like all colonies, slavery did exist here in New England. It was on a smaller scale, but it did exist. Slaves would work in ports and cities in particular. And then, as you mentioned on the last slide, we have merchants. Whaling was a huge part of the economy, as were people who fished. Again, that irregular coastline and using the resources of the Atlantic Ocean.
All right, so as we start to slide south in the American colonies, we go to what was referred to as the middle colonies. And what states or colonies at the time made up the middle colonies? Well, it was New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware.
Do you know who this guy is here?
That is the guy from the Quaker Oats box?
Yeah, that's right. The most famous Quaker of all, William Penn, who founded New Jersey.
Nice.
Pennsylvania.
So when we study the geography of the middle colonies, we have to be aware that it was flat land. We had more fertile soil. It was very dense forest areas, so you had an opportunity to knock a lot of those trees down, chop them down, and turn it into lumber. Again, wood, very important during this time period for shipbuilding, for building of homes and buildings. Also port cities, again, that irregular coastline, specifically in areas of New York, that will be helpful to grow some major cities that we still see today. As we continue to look at the middle colonies, it's important to understand the economy. Again, agriculture, very important, cereal crops, so we're talking more consumable crops, and also shipbuilding, as we mentioned before, because of the abundance of lumber in this region.
All right, jumping over to demographics, this is the most diverse of all the regions, New England, Middle, and Southern. You have a lot of European immigrants coming to this region, not just English. A lot of people from different areas of Europe are coming here.
Could you say that this is still one of the more diverse regions of the country today?
I would absolutely agree with that, yes, for sure. So we see religious diversity, and again, many countries from Europe are coming here. Now, the labor systems, again, just like the New England colonies and the Southern colonies, slavery will exist here. In addition to working in ports and cities like slaves did in New England, they will work on farms as well. We have indentured servants, which we'll talk more about in the next video, but these are individuals whose passage to America was paid by somebody else. Usually indentured servants could not afford the trip to come to America, so somebody would pay for them to come over, and they would work for them for several years. And here is an indentured servant contract that would list the responsibilities of the indentured servant when they come over.
Some pretty fancy handwriting.
Yeah, I wish I could write like that. That's nice.
So as we move to our third and final region of the American colonies we need to know for this course is the Southern colonies. And if you want to take a guess, what are some of those Southern colonies? Well, if you said Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia, you are correct.
And our students right now, do us a favor, circle Maryland and Virginia and write down Chesapeake for us. These two are often lumped together in the Chesapeake region of the South.
So what do we need to know about the geography of this region? Well, in the South, if you've ever been to a southern state, or if you live in a southern state, you're going to know that it is warmer than those New England or middle colonies. So you had a long and hot growing season. So it was good for the growth of some specific crops that we'll talk more about in a second. The land itself was very fertile. It was very flat, so it was great for agricultural economy. So what do we need to know about the economy? Well, it was all about the agriculture. It was about plantations and the development of cash crops, specifically tobacco, at this colonial time period. So you see this fancy looking guy over here with his cool collar. He's smoking a pipe, and that is tobacco that he's smoking. So this becomes a very popular habit within the European colonies, and it is a major cash crop. So one thing that we're going to see, very important, I think, that we understand when we study American history, is that early settlers to the New England colonies, what do we say they were coming for?
Religion.
So religion was a huge priority for them. They wanted freedom of religion. Many people who came to the southern colonies, what do you think their purpose was?
Money.
Money, that's right. So we see a distinction between the different regions of why people were coming to the Americas at this time period.
All right, jumping over to demographics, there's a lower life expectancy than other regions because bacteria is able to live in the warmer climates. Many people died at age 20. Do you know what that means, Mr. Lawrence? It means you're having a midlife crisis at 10 years old. That's insane.
Wow.
I wonder what they were buying then. Maybe a new boat or something like that?
Yeah,
I don't
maybe
know.
a hoop and stick.
Hoop and stick. There would be more men settled in the South than other areas because they were working on plantations, a lot of indentured servants. The labor systems, originally there was a large amount of indentured servants that made up a significant labor source, but we'll talk about this, they will be replaced with African slavery. So originally indentured servants who would work anywhere from 4 to 7 years, but they would be replaced with African slaves, and we'll talk about why in the next video.
All right, let's do a quick recap of this video. Some things you need to know as a quick reminder. First, slavery in all 13 colonies. So the issue of slavery will be a major topic of discussion when we study American history. In our early colonial period, it's important to know that in all 13 colonies, slavery was an institution that existed. When we look at the New England colonies specifically, they had the longest life expectancy and also a mixed economy of agriculture mixed with shipbuilding, mixed with the development of trade with merchants. When we look at our middle colonies, it was the most diverse colonies. You had people coming from different regions, different faiths moving into the area. It was focused on agriculture, specifically cereal crops, so more consumable crops that people could eat. Finally, the southern colonies, we saw the lowest life expectancy. It was a very warm climate, and agriculture was the focus of the economy, specifically cash crops and the development of plantation systems.
All right, guys, thanks for watching. We look forward to seeing you back here for video number 3, Indentured Servitude and Slavery in Colonial America. Thanks for watching. Best of luck on all of your tests this year, and have a good day.